Hello, hello, hello. Wait, tell you what, double salute to start off the show. Welcome to the weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris. This is going to be a busy show. We have a lot on the agenda tonight. I'm definitely excited later on tonight to talk about some of the fantastic new comics that came out. Animal Pound ended strong. The Moon is Following Us by Daniel Warren Johnson and Riley Rossmo. Oh, there's a lot that I can say about this. Always some crazy news, but we also are going to kick things off. I think that this is hopefully going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. I've got a guest. Actually, let me multiply that times 4. I have 4 guests. Folks, I know a ton of you that watch this show know who I'm talking about. Ed Piskor, incredible talent, really nice guy. Well, he has a book that he finished that has not come out yet, and his family is here to talk about it. They're going to be our guests tonight. Please welcome the almost entire Piskor clan. We have Bobby, we have Justine, we have Diane, and we have Bree. Welcome, family.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
It's definitely my pleasure and the pleasure of everybody here. So we ultimately have you here because there's another new book coming out that I know you guys are eager to promote and tell people about, and we'll get to talking about Switchblade Shorties at Zoop. I wanted to just start off by congratulating everybody. This isn't the omnibus, but this is my copy. Congratulations. You guys got to accept the Eisner for the Hip Hop Family Tree omnibus. How was the chaos of San Diego Comic-Con for everybody?
That was incredible.
It was my first comic experience, and oh my gosh, was it overwhelming.
I can only imagine, because the biggest conventions like San Diego and New York, if you don't have a plan, you're just going to be distracted by all the lights and sounds and costumes and everything. But
yeah, it was a wild experience, to say the least.
It was. But you guys got to be a center of attention a little bit, and that's got to feel hopefully pretty good. I hope people were kind to you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, super kind.
It was very interesting to have people come up to us that we've never met before and tell us how much they loved Ed.
Oh, that's really lovely to hear. Yeah. And I'm sure that that's a pretty serious on both sides, but I know that it means a lot to the readers and the fans and the viewers that they can sort of say that and share that with you guys. Like that's a really important moment of healing for a lot of people. So thank you for stepping up and being so public facing these days. You've done the conventions, you ran your own Eddie P Comic-Con that I'd love to talk about a little, and you've got this great series of social media accounts with Ed Piskor's legacy, not just showing his work, but sharing a little bit behind the scenes of the family here. It seems like you guys were a pretty tight-knit group, or still are, of course.
Absolutely. But here at the end of the day, Eddie was our brother, my mom's son. He was a human being. So we want to humanize him as much as possible. And it's been overwhelming, the support that we've gotten from the whole community. And it's just us sharing, some behind the scenes and some personal stuff.
Speaking of that, this is a unique opportunity for me. I mean, Ed talked to us online a lot about art, his art, other art that would influence him and stuff. Is there anything you can share with us about what he was like when he was younger and first getting into drawing and comics, and any specific memories that stand out at all?
So my mom, and I've said this before, she was super cool. She used to let him draw on the walls of our bedroom. Like when most kids get in trouble,
that's true, we did say that.
it was a blessing for him to be able to doodle on the walls and not get in trouble. We also had a sketchbook together when we were kids that I was not allowed to draw on.
Oh, so it was only in writing that it was shared.
Yeah, it was, hey, we have this idea together, but he was going to draw it out.
Got it. Okay. So that was That was Ed's method.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my favorites is when my dad was sleeping on the couch and like his belly's sticking out, and Eddie just sat there and drew the entire thing of him laying there sleeping.
That's amazing. What a gift! What a talent he had to like, and he in his time he worked a lot of different methods, because Hip Hop Family Tree, nonfiction, did superhero stuff with Marvel. Did something like Switchblade Shorties, which is going back to more the comic strip stuff. Tell me a little bit before we go into like the crowdfunder about what kind of duties have each of you started to take on, because I sort of hinted at it. There's been conventions, there's been appearances, there's been social media. What's everybody doing over there? What are you guys doing?
So Justine's kind of taken the lead as far as being like the front facing like social media guru. She's done a fantastic job just getting everything out there and sharing our brother with the world. We all collectively ran the Eddie P Con. I had a lot of years of promoting under my belt, so I kind of used some of my like knowledge with promoting events to help really push that and get that off the ground too. So but I'm also like a graphic designer, so like I helped like design stuff for the con.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, and I also am designing some stuff for the Switchblade release. Wow.
I wanted to say during the Eddie P Comic Con, you guys raised a bunch of money for the suicide hotline, and I just you didn't have to do that sort of extra step. I certainly appreciate that. Like that, I hope that this was a good enough experience that you guys are considering doing something like this again.
Absolutely, like that
was just the beginning.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah.
Any new ideas?
None that we're going to talk about yet, but trust me, you haven't seen The Last of Us. We just got started, so
that's good.
The first Eddie P Con was a definite success.
Good.
Thanks to Carol and
John's
comic book store in Cleveland, together with their donation and our donation, it was
close to $4,000.
Close to $4,000. So I want to give a great shout out to them. They were just absolutely fantastic.
Oh, they were the nicest people.
They came in with a giant check for us that they made a very hefty donation, and it's been amazing.
That's so positive. I'm glad that you guys have been doing so much to just bring a lot of positivity out of this. Do any of you have any favorite comics work by Ed? Anything that like each of you individually has like, that's the one that spoke to me?
X-Men for me.
X-Men.
Specifically his Magneto drawing, because I was actually here sitting with him while he was doing it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Finish was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Red Room for me. I love like Halloween and anything that has gore related to it. I definitely, when he was designing the characters for it, he would just say like, what's the scariest thing that you think that you've seen, or something along the lines of something spooky that nobody's ever seen before in a movie.
Right.
So it was just fun trying to help him out with that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
My favorite would have been WYSIWYG.
Oh, beautiful book. I think that was the second thing by Ed I ever saw after his work with Harvey Piskor. Yeah.
Yes.
What about it spoke to you, Diane?
Well, I actually helped edit the book for him.
Oh, okay.
Because he wasn't real sure of, sentence structure and things of that nature. He just wanted to make sure that it was perfect.
Wow.
And he didn't want to make, a fool of himself by having misconstrued words and things like that. And I believe I even helped ink some of the lettering on that for him.
Really? So you actually got your hands dirty, we'll say, on that book. That's exciting to learn.
Yeah, my favorite was the hip hop series, just because there's a lot of like crazy stories that came out of it, including like like you'll hear a lot of stories about our father being the one to answer the phone when Eddie would get an important business call, because Eddie lived at home at the time.
Right.
And I remember hearing a story of my brother sleeping and the phone rings. It's like early in the morning, and he goes and wakes my brother up, and he's like, "Hey Ed, there's this guy on the phone named Bismarck. Mark."
I didn't know about that.
During that time, I was watching Yo Gabba Gabba as a kid.
Wow. Yeah, that must have been surreal for the rest of the family who knew who Bismarck was. That's incredible.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stories like that where Papa P would get pick up the phone and be on the phone with somebody of importance and him not having a clue who they are.
I hope it's at least in the back of you guys' mind that maybe someday it's worth a book or a graphic novel about Ed's life, because little stories like that would add up to some very entertaining tales. I really love hearing that.
There's a lot of fun stories out there that we'll be sharing over the next however many years.
Well, I appreciate you sharing a little bit of that with us tonight. So Ed's last book that we've got complete, Switchblade Shorties. He was like playing with the comic strip format and stuff, and now you guys are controlling this. What had you decide that going into the crowdfunding world was the right direction for this? What helped you with that decision?
Well, when Abrams dropped the contract with him, we couldn't find anyone else that could come up with the price that Abrams was willing to offer.
Got it.
And our lawyer suggested crowdfunding and gave us contact with Jordan at Zoop. And, the rest is going to be history.
Absolutely. Well, there's been a lot of really successful books specifically through Zoop. And obviously one of the advantages that I could understand might help you guys is that they handle so much of the fulfillment aspect of it. So,
especially coming into this, not knowing anything, we're learning a lot. And
I could see that being a huge advantage for this project. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, they've been fantastic, and we've been working very closely with them, meeting all the deadlines that they've given us for like certain things, and we're just all very excited about this.
And the line of communication has been very well. Like, we haven't been confused or anything, or in the dark about anything.
Good.
So.
Yep.
That's awesome. This is exciting. So some of the people watching today may not know too much about what this book is. So anybody available to just give a little summation of what this is to interest them in signing up for this campaign?
Oh man. It's like a bunch of different stories.
It's a bunch of kids causing chaos.
Yeah.
One of their friends goes missing, and throughout the saga they run into some very interesting characters.
And there's like no parental supervision.
Yeah.
They're just getting into trouble.
So it's honestly, it's just a fun story.
Right.
It's definitely like more laid back than the rest of his work.
Mm-hmm.
And he had so much fun creating it.
That's nice. I truly believe that when a comic book creator of any kind is passionate about something, that does shine through in the project. I mean, I think some of us have read it, and it is comedy, folks. It's playing with maybe the Peanuts format of these are tiny little kids, but they're way more eloquent and adult acting than they should be. They're getting into adventures. There might be aliens and stuff involved because this is comics. So it's just to be clear, tomorrow, the 24th, that's launching. Is that correct?
Yeah, the pre-orders go live starting tomorrow.
Got it. Are there going to be like any options for getting things aside from the book itself? Are there like sort of extras or other comics and stuff like that too?
There's going to be a lot of extra features.
Beautiful.
Plus jacket. There's potentially some prints.
Okay.
Be a few surprises inside the book.
Yep.
A lot of content.
Stickers, t-shirts. Yep. We got a lot of.
Well, we've been having fun.
Yeah. There's a lot going into this. I know
beautiful.
this is Eddie's passion project, but like we've kind of like found some passion
Yeah, we
behind
made
it.
it like our passion project as well.
So there's a lot of love that has gone into this, and hopefully we've met Eddie's high standard.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm positive you guys will. I'm positive. I really am. And I'll just say to people that are like giving some thought, like, hey, a lot of crowdfunding comics, they might be gathering the funds early, but this is complete. So it's like, and Zoop has a good track record for getting it out there. So, keep in mind, folks, like that you're basically just buying into a comic. Pretty great opportunity, in my opinion.
Yes.
I hope it potentially leads to more. I'm sure that there are reprints or things you could think of in the future for like art books. At least I would love something like that, an art book.
Like we said, we're just getting started.
Got it. Yeah. See, I'm trying to be a little bit of a journalist and getting like things out of you, but you're getting savvy very quickly, folks. You're getting used to this.
We've been schooled in this for a very long time, and it's just only a matter of time before we had to come in and start talking to people and yeah.
Now I know Jordan a little bit, and he's great, and I'm glad that he's helping. But I'm just curious, have any pros or anything like that in the industry also like stepped up to give you guys any good advice?
Oh yes,
Jim and Tom are like our right and left hands.
Yeah,
Jim Rugg and Tom Scioli that you're talking about for those who may not. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we've ran so many people. We have such a great group of people that have been like really supportive and helping us out through everything. So we couldn't have done this without all of their help.
Shout out to the K fam.
Yeah, lots of people here shouting out that they were a King K-Faber or things like that. We've got like folks that have been to your conventions and events, like Jim here. Yeah, Jim's saying everybody should support this project. Super fun, gorgeously drawn comics from the man Eddie P. I know Jim very well, and he does not like just make up fake compliments. He's a very, very honest guy. So that's really beautiful. I'm glad to hear that you're getting help and advice like that and fitting in. What else are you folks doing for like any of future appearances? I know you, for instance, last weekend you went to the Baltimore Comic-Con. At least some of you, right?
We all did.
How about New York?
Well,
we didn't go
we
to the
just went to the
Comic-Con. We
Ringos.
just went to the Ringo.
You went to the Ringo Awards. Got it. Well, yeah. Congrats to, of course, to Ed and his work for being nominated there. That's even getting nominated for any of these awards is fantastic for putting it in front of new readers' eyeballs.
That was
A lot
a
of appreciation.
experience too. We met some really great people.
Mhm.
It was just like positive vibes all around the room. Like we were saying yesterday, every presenter was hysterically funny.
Mhm.
Oh my
We had
gosh.
such a good time. Hi, Brian.
And then I got a little sidetracked. I was just curious. Any plans to go to New York Comic-Con?
Not this year.
Not this year. That's a huge one too. Totally get it. Just curious.
We're running out.
It's chaos, folks. So you're not necessarily making a mistake. That one you have to really prepare for.
Next year is going to be different. We'll be able to we'll be able to move some things around to be able to get to more events, and we're definitely going to be showing our face a lot more.
And our next event, me and the girls will be going to the Maui Con.
Oh, how beautiful! Oh, I've not been to that one, although I've heard wonderful things, and I do love the island of Maui. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I hope you guys have a great time out there.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we will.
That's yeah, you will. Like it would be hard not to, honestly. It really would. Very
in December. Okay.
twist my arm. That's funny. So I've got a link for folks that don't know in the description to the Zoop campaign, and I definitely encourage folks to check that out. What other places should they go to keep up to date with all the stuff that you guys are doing for Ed's legacy?
You can follow us on Ed Piskor's Legacy on Instagram. I'm sharing on there. I'm on there all day long, basically. So
it's beautiful. It's so nice because you're sharing art, you're showing pictures of Ed, traveling and stuff, but you're also sharing a lot of stuff with the family, and it really helps us remember that Ed was a real person, not just the guy that created the books that we like, and I think that's really beautiful. I'm sure it's a lot of hard work, but I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, folks, good luck with the Zoop campaign. And I hope that once this book is crowdfunded, that you've got basically more and more of an excuse to continue going to some of these comic book events to promote the book once it's out. I'm excited for it. Anything I'm forgetting that we should talk about?
Got something to say, Mom?
Well, we just need to give everybody their marching orders to make more comics.
I love it.
Read more comics, be kind, and say his name, Ed Piskor forever.
Ed Piskor forever. I'll stand behind that. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank
Have
you.
a lovely evening. And folks, the Piskors here are planning on doing some stuff over on their Instagram account, Ed Piskor's Legacy, tonight in about 30, 40 minutes, right?
Yes.
That's good, yeah.
Beautiful. So I won't be offended if tonight folks want to take off and go watch that, and you can come watch this once it's archived. Thank you, everybody. I really do appreciate your time this evening and continued success.
Thank you.
You so much.
Take care.
You too.
Got a weird tone there at the very end. That was a real treat. That was a real treat. Thank you all for so many kind comments. Love you. Love you all for doing that. Yeah, isn't that nice of them to donate some of their time to promoting something like this? I hope you all strongly consider checking out Ed's book. I mean, it's a pretty special opportunity that there's still something out there, something new for us to discover and enjoy. It really helps hopefully keep that legacy alive as long as possible. Oh yeah, you know, I think I'm something like the fourth interview they said they've done in like 2 weeks, so I'm not the first, but I'm glad that I was able to get a little of their time. They're really tight, and they if you go to the Ed Piskor Legacy account, it's really beautiful how much stuff they do together, how close they all were. Just does seem like nice. That was really nice to get to talk to them a bit tonight. Yeah, well, thanks to Jordan at Zoop for arranging this opportunity. So that was pretty good. Let's see, read a lot of them on his Patreon. So great. Book is a treat. I like it. Good. I'm definitely going to get it. I mean, I'm so curious to read it all and experience it as one work, you know, because he was posting individually, but I'm curious to read it as one big story. That I think that'll be interesting. Well, I am going to move on to the next segment. We will have some news now, and then after the news, I'm going to look at some of the comics again that I said came out this week. So let's go ahead and bring up the news. The format of the book is going to be great, says Dave. That would be nice. I think a lot of us miss it, Joe, but it's nice to know that there's still some more books coming. They were great. They were great. Let's go. Let's go. All right. So, switching gears, okay? We're going to switch gears and talk about comic book news. And what's more comicsy than Marvel giving us a bunch of brand new legacy characters? You know, they're creating a new teen team. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Marvel issued a press release this week. They've got a new Young Heroes team that they're calling the Assembly. That's going to start in January. You see little hints of each of the characters in these letters. And if it looks familiar at all, that's because these characters were all created for variant covers last year. They were sort of like a hypothetical new, sort of like new champions, sort of like new warriors, like Marvel's Young Avengers. They've had a bunch of young teams. These heroes all did appear in one comic book issue in Spider-Woman #7 in print, but originally, yeah, they were all variant covers for like they were. It was called like the Champions Initiative. It was sort of to help promote Spider-Boy, and it was coming up with hypothetical sidekicks that a bunch of superheroes could have. For instance, there's Amaranth. She's Scarlet Witch's disciple, I guess you might call it. Cadet Marvel, as in he's a big fan of Captain Marvel. The one that looks the most fun to me is probably this one, Hellrune. She's a Ghost Rider sidekick on like rollerblades, which just sounds fun and funny. But I think you have to have some of that for superhero stuff to work. We've got Titan, a Thor sidekick idea, Moon Squire, Liberty, and then this Wakandan that knows magic, but I don't know that character's name because I'm not an expert. I think that I think it could be fun, although not that Amaranth, but it's spelled a little differently. One funny thing is this. So Fabian Nicieza posted this. He goes, after decades of mishandling and not understanding what New Warriors was actually all about, takes a bit of nerve for Marvel to graft its themes to a different title down to using its original ad copy. Of course, they have the right to use it. That doesn't make using it right. Because when the New Warriors broke out, like that was the ad copy. All they want to do is change the world. And now this new team changed the world. Universal, although, you know, Fabian's got a point. Like, why call this, you know, a new team? Just make it the New Warriors. Use that brand. I don't know. Well, he doesn't really have a sidekick. What they did is like come up with theoretical ideas for the covers. Like if this hero had a teen sidekick and they let these like top tier artists go nuts. For instance, Peach Momoko created Maystorm. And now she actually introduced that as a real character in her book, Ultimate X-Men. So they've sort of slowly been getting introduced, even though visually they were created for some variant covers. So new, you just can't get enough. Night Thrasher would have been an awesome Ghost Rider. Oh, that could be fun. That could be fun. A new book people won't support instead by Spider-Man again. Well, who knows? You know what I noticed though out of this is that in the last, we'll say 10 years, there's not too many new characters that Marvel or DC have introduced that aren't sort of derivative of an existing character. And I think that some of that is that if you were a writer or an artist, you're going to do a lot of fun stuff at Marvel or DC. But if you have a really good idea for a new character, don't you think you're more likely right now to hold on to that and make it your own at, you know, Image or someplace like that? I think so. They haven't announced the creative yet. Moving on. I guess it was just a matter of time, but the X-Men have already announced their first crossover event. Only thing I can say is I was glad that it wasn't across all of their something like 12 or so titles. That would have been way too much too soon. But their first crossover of the From the Ashes era will involve 2 titles, X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. Okay, so it's a 4-issue event. It's going to go through the Jed MacKay, Ryan Stegman team book led by Cyclops and the Gail Simone, David Marquez team led by Rogue. And as for the story, both teams make moves to rescue a prisoner in Grey Malkin prison. And if you haven't been reading the books, the prison is something the government took over the X-Mansion and have converted it into a prison for mutants. So they're holding somebody there, and these 2 teams have different ideas on how to rescue them. I really don't know. A US-1 Ghost Rider. You know that in the 70s and going in like almost into the 80s, that when Marvel was putting out Ghost Rider, Team America, and US-1, that they wanted to probably do some sort of trucker/biker crossover, and it just never got there because only Ghost Rider was popular. Both. They're each writing their own title. So it'll go between 2 issues of each of the 2 books, adding up to 4. At least it isn't, like I say, like a 12-issue event across a million titles. I really like the Gail Simone book, but I'm not in a position or a place where I want to read that much X-Men. I'm glad they have so many different types of X titles. Like they've got different mission statements and a different mix of characters. but it's too much for me to want to read it all. Yeah, I think a small crossover between two titles is much more manageable and potentially interesting. It doesn't get unwieldy. We'll see. Ha, there's my catchphrase. I got to just make a t-shirt at this point, right? We'll see. That'll be the pros and cons or weekly Spinner Rack official t-shirt. We'll see. I also just wasn't really getting into the Jed MacKay one. I wanted to. I've liked a lot of stuff Jed MacKay's written. I've liked a lot of stuff Ryan Stegman drew. That X-Men title just didn't connect with me that much. What else have we got? New team stuff at Marvel. These are both kind of brief, but one, apparently Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, is going to join the Avengers in issue 22 of that book. That's also written by Jed MacKay, artist Fareed Karami. I might be mispronouncing that name. We'll see. And a double salute hat. Maybe I'll make them just for the heck of it. We'll see. All right. What else? And then the ad copy for the Ultimates issue 8. Now that's by Dennis Camp and Juan Frigeri. It reads, "The Ultimate Guardians of the Galaxy. America Chavez takes center stage in this issue as a group of galactic travelers from a far-flung, maker-free future arrive in search of her." That's interesting. I'll tell you, the Ultimates started, like the first issue, I was like, yeah, it's okay. And it keeps getting more and more interesting. That's actually a really, really cool book. I enjoy the Ultimates. It's a good one. We'll see. We'll see. Right. I have to say it twice, or maybe once on the front and once on the back. Well, we're going to do what? Yes. That would be very rude if that's what I said to Daredevil. Or nobody's supposed to know that Daredevil's blind. It would be rude if I said it to Matt Murdock. But if I said it to Daredevil, you can't blame me because I don't know that he's blind. Yeah, it's a chance to sort of explore the differences in this world. It could be fun. You know, characters like She-Hulk, radically different interpretation of, or Green Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man. There's some radically different interpretations of some characters. And I think that that's to its benefit to have a bunch of differences. Absolute Batman, after getting to talk to Scott Snyder, I was already intrigued, but Absolute Batman, well, I got to read the first issue, for that interview, and it's pretty cool, actually. It's pretty cool, is all I'll say. No spoilers. No actual cover art yet for issue 8, which I was like, well, maybe it's just a little too far in the future, or maybe it has something that would be considered spoilery, so they didn't want to release that, because they did release this ad copy. An MCU exec says that he wants a Ghost Rider show. Why so many shows? Why can't we get some more movies? They don't all have to be trilogies. They don't all have to build up, why do they all have to be TV shows? Well, anyway, Marvel Television boss, Marvel Studios head of Marvel streaming television and animation, all the TV stuff, all the Disney Plus stuff, Brad Winderbaum. He spoke with Collider to promote Agatha All Along, and he was asked what character he'd want to bring to TV. Guess. Can you guess what I'm going to talk about? Let's see. Ghost Rider. He said specifically, I would want to do the Danny Ketch era of Ghost Rider. I think there are a lot of people who would be here for some Ghost Rider. And I would be. I also happen to like the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider a lot. There's been a few different Ghost Riders, to be clear. Not worth breaking all that down. But it would be fun. Oh, look at that. Let's get Philippe and Trad animated. Oh, yeah, Trad Moore. Got it. An animated Ghost Rider show. That's actually a really strong idea, Dave. You know what I see sometimes at work? We have the kids channel on at work, okay? So I walk by and there'll be, Bluey or something, and otherwise I'd never know about it. They have Moon Girl on there, and I'll tell you something. That show looks fun. Moon Girl, just talking about Marvel animated shows. I like that it's got a style and stuff. I haven't like watched a full episode, but I've seen little clips and I'm like, that's kind of cool. There was one where I want to say it might have been Lawrence Fishburne, but there was definitely some sort of name actor voicing a version of the Beyonder, and he was singing, and I was laughing. I was like, oh, it's the Beyonder. This is hilarious. It's really good. Yeah. I would consider doing some sort of a Ghost Rider video at some point. You know, some books start out and they don't have a clear direction. And I'll just point to the original, not the original, but the Marvel Daredevil of the 60s. I'll point to, the original Ghost Rider. It was kind of clear that they were making it up as they went along. They weren't 100% sure where it was going. It is a little weird to think of starting with Danny Ketch versus Johnny Blaze, but it's a pretty cool mythology, and you really could introduce it and then at some point retroactively say, oh, by the way, Johnny Blaze also does exist as Ghost Rider. Here's that story. I don't think we're going to get Nick Cage back as Ghost Rider, but you never know. You never know. We'll see. Here's a shocker. The Marvel versus DC omnibuses have been delayed again. So they originally announced these two omnibuses reprinting almost all of their past crossovers. And that was planned for August 6th. We're obviously past that. In May, they delayed that to September. Well, now we're in September, and this week they announced that they're delayed again, and they're no longer coming out on the same day anymore. So we've got DC versus Marvel. The Amalgam Age is coming out December 31st, and DC versus Marvel coming out October 29th. I don't know. I don't know if this is really coming out or not. I have to imagine it is. I don't know what the delay is. They've never talked about that. So I don't know. Is it, is it printing? Is it, contracts between these two companies? It could be so many things. It's just a little weird because the work is all done. It's been done for over 20 years. Delays, but not... No, there's some dismay. Delays, but not displays. I'll say that that's pretty accurate. Nick Cage is already pretty busy acting as Spider-Man Noir, but you want him to be Ghost Rider Noir? I guess I would like to see Ghost Rider somehow wear a fedora. I think that would be cool. Give him an asbestos fedora, and his flames just sort of like trickle out like a beard instead of like over his head. Sure, that's a good idea. Speaking of, hey, why did Marvel and DC ever stop doing crossovers? Well, there was actually some news on that. So Marvel and DC started doing crossovers all the way back in 1976. First one had to be Superman, Spider-Man. Pretty fun book, honestly. But they haven't made anything since 2004. That's when JLA Avengers wrapped up, 2004. So it's been 20 years. Well, former DC publisher Dan DiDio explained that he was the one that stopped them. He was at Tampa Bay Comic Convention a little while back, and this was a quote he had. "You're talking to the one person that stopped every Marvel and DC crossover." Then he chuckled. "I'm going to tell you why I stopped it, and I'm going to say this to everyone. My reason was, when you're in competition with other places, you have to have pride in your own work, and you have to believe in your own material. The only reason I'm crossing over is if I'm having really bad sales or there is a problem with the market. If I have to rely on other companies to prop my characters up, then I'm in bigger trouble than I thought. My second reason was, after that comes out, what do you do next? After you cross that over and you get that big moment, you're still back in the same place you were beforehand, and now it seems less special because you just removed so many other things away from it." I will say I understand his argument that, like, yeah, if that is a reason why a company could be doing it, is because sales are kind of bad. And honestly, I kind of think that in the mid 90s, that actually was kind of true for Marvel and DC. All of a sudden, they had this new competition that they hadn't really had on that level before, from Image and Valiant to a degree, at least for a time. A few other publishers, they probably did have that pressure. But I also think it overlooks the reason you should do it. It's fun. It's literally fun. Why not take that money? I don't think you have to outdo it or keep doing it. It's just something fun. And I think that superheroes need to have a certain amount of fun to them. So I'd say I get why he's saying it like from a business. You don't want to rely on that. Totally get it. But why would you want to? Because it's fun. I mean, there's a part of it that could apply there, Jamilin. There's a part. That's a fair argument. Like, how do you do something better? But you know what? I might have thought that based on the original X-Men Teen Titans book. So I don't think it's something you should do a lot. I don't. But you're telling me that if, some top tier talent today, like, I don't know, a Dan Mora or a Daniel Warren Johnson could work on a Marvel DC thing, that wouldn't somehow be fun and crazy and wild and just a good time? I think it would. I don't think you should be in a position where you need to do it. I'll agree with Dan on that. Your business isn't going well if you feel the need to do this, but it can just be fun, and it can be money that you can take, like something to think about. Two-Face is getting his own comic. Did you see how I pivoted from Marvel to DC with those Marvel DC things in the middle? Now that's clever planning. That's what makes me a pro. All right. So yeah, Two-Face is getting his own comic. Specifically, DC announced this week that he'll be getting his first series by writer Christian Ward, art Fabio Veras. And for the plot, it said that Harvey has been using his skills as an attorney to resolve the conflicts of Gotham's weirdest and most dangerous criminals, starting with Victor Zsasz, while Two-Face tries to gain full control of their body. Okay, that might not be a bad direction. That might not be bad. First issue comes out December 4th. It is a limited series. They haven't said how many issues. I looked a bunch. Fair. Oh, man. That would actually be clever to have it somehow be a flip book. But I don't think that they've done that. These days, you'd be lucky to only get 2 covers. But that's also a good idea. There's a lot of fun stuff you could do there. Yeah, actually, now that you say that, there's a little bit there. You're right, because Newburn by Chip Zdarsky and Jacob Phillips is not superheroes or anything. It's just grounded crime drama of a former police detective who now works for all the crime families to resolve their differences before they potentially, ever have a gang war, which is very costly and expensive. They have him investigate these crimes that involve each other. Hey, Batman's getting his own star on the Walk of Fame. Are you going to be there to see it happen? Is that a big deal to you? A star that says the word Batman on it? Folks, it's in a star shape, to be clear, but the words on it do say Batman. That does make it comic book related, and we do all love comic books in all their forms every time. So Batman will receive the 2,790th star. That's a really lovely number on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's this Thursday, 11 a.m. And it's going to be on Hollywood Boulevard in front of the Hollywood Guinness World Records Museum, if you want to go see. Yeah, the Walk of Fame goes through some pretty seedy sections of LA, actually. Some of it's not so bad, but a bunch of it is not great. The star is going to be placed by Adam West and Bob Kane. Hey, if you're putting in a bad Batman star, that makes sense, I suppose. Right. Yeah, it is paid for by. If you don't know, there's an organization that runs the Walk of Fame, and you have to sort of petition, and their group decides who's going to get a Walk of Fame, but you still have to pay for it, and I think pay to maintain it too. I don't think this is the actual star. I think that this is just a mock-up, just to be clear. Booking my flight immediately. Yeah, better hurry. I don't know, but I guess if he was going to get one, it's more likely now than it was, 15 years ago. Jim Lee will be among those present to speak. So could be fun. Look, it's just designed to be something fun. It's pretty goofy. Although one time I was in LA, this is a long time ago, and I had made myself my own Pat Morita shirt, and I happened to come across Pat Morita's star. So I have a picture of me wearing a Pat Morita shirt standing over his star, which makes me look like a super fan, and I really was just being ironic. So that was something we did in the early 2000s. Well, it's not like they can bring out guys like Bob Kane, Bill Finger, Jerry Robinson. So, I mean, yeah, he at least is in charge of DC. Oh, I don't know. I think that they probably just talk about the history of the character. Oh, yeah. And Jamilin makes a good point here. These are all people that have to basically have been in movies or TV. So, or involved on that, like behind the scenes in some level. So Batman's getting his star under their sort of like movie banner. It's weird. Where's Rachel? I hope something similar to Dave. I hope Christian Bale shows up and just says, I don't wear hockey pads. Hockey pads are what I don't watch. Oh, wow. My sister just sent me an image of us as little kids standing by Mickey Mouse's star. I just got it. Let's see. I don't know if this will show up. There. That's us. That says Mickey Mouse. I don't remember that. Thank you for having that. Swear to me that you'll keep this Batman star clean. Burt Ward actually does have a star. Yes, Burt Ward does have a star. And what's kind of funny is he got it like, I don't know when, but like somewhat recently, I think, based on how he looks. And then there's a guy dressed up in his Robin costume, but he's him. Well, I hope that you think on that every night. That sounds beautiful. There's more news. I know that's the biggest, but there's more. Cormac McCarthy's The Road is going to be a graphic novel. Well, actually, it already has been. I'll explain. So tomorrow, Abrams is publishing an English version of The Road as a graphic novel. And if you haven't read that book, maybe you've at least seen the movie that came out back in 2009. But boy, is that a dark book. It's a post-apocalyptic story where nothing grows anymore. So eventually, probably everybody's going to die. But it's just a father trying to keep his son alive. And they're just, walking this post-apocalyptic America, scavenging for food. It's really interesting, though. It's trying to find like hope in a very bleak environment. I kind of liked it a lot. French artist Manu Larsenet adapted this with the approval, to be clear, of both Cormac McCarthy and his estate before McCarthy passed away last year. I think it was like June of 2023 that he passed away. But this was published in French by Dargaud last March. there was a movie adaptation starring Viggo Mortensen. So Viggo is actually, now that I think of it, he's been in 2 comic book movies that people probably don't know are no, this isn't a comic book movie. Now you could call it a comic book movie, but it's not really. It's an adaptation of but he was in History of Violence. He was in History of Violence was a comic. Yeah, the interior art is gorgeous. They definitely, like, I'm going to pick it up. I got to read it in this format. I'm really curious. No, there's Mad Max still has stuff that will grow. You know, there's a lot of desert and stuff, but stuff can still grow in the road, like trees and plants and animals. They just like can't survive anymore. Oh, it is a really dark, sort of depressing story. It really is, but it's about hope in the face of, you know, something very bleak. It's a very dry book. Feel good. It's not feel good, but it is interesting. It's just interesting to explore that father-son dynamic of him trying to protect his kid. We've talked about this a bunch lately, and I think that there are 2 actors that are tied. I believe Chris Evans and Josh Brolin are both tied at 6 superhero performances each. I'm pretty sure. Hey, good point, Jeff. I forgot about that, but you're right. Yeah. Road to Perdition. Yep, that's a good comic book movie. Right. There's a bunch. For instance, if I was talking about these guys that were in movies that people often forget are comic book movies, people forget that Snowpiercer was a comic book. That was a Chris Evans performance. Sometimes people forget that Men in Black is a comic book movie. So that was one that Josh Brolin played Agent K in. Well, he's been in a lot of movies, but I was talking about characters, but appearances, yeah, Samuel L. Jackson and Chris Evans and Josh Brolin and Stan Lee would all be way up there. Monkey Bone is, a comic book movie. There's a bunch that people forget. The Killer. You could argue this one, but what was that Tom Cruise movie where his day keeps repeating? That was originally a light novel in Japan, and then it became a manga, and then it became a movie. Do people not know that? I always think of The Mask as a comic book first, but maybe Ghost World, maybe. Yep, Old Boy. Oh, and Old Boy is technically one of those Josh Brolin appearances. Not that the American one was that good, but yeah. Mystery Men, right? Edge of Tomorrow, Barbed Wire. Some of these they kind of promoted as comic book movies, but maybe like Virus. That was another Dark Horse was like on this roll in the 90s because The Mask was so big, and then they did Barbed Wire, and they also did Virus. Scud hasn't been a movie yet, though. Tank Girl, yeah, lots of ones. I like thinking about that. Yeah, The Fountain would count. I have seen the Dylan Dog movie with Brandon Routh, and I don't recommend it. It was completed first because it was sort of done simultaneously for a little while. I think most people think of Dredd as a comic book movie. I don't know. IDW has said that they're going to expand into new genres. Specifically, CEO and publisher of IDW, Davide Jonas, he was on an investor's call recently. Keep in mind that technically they are a publicly traded company, so you have to do investor calls from time to time. And one of the things he talked about was the fact that he said IDW has plans to do superhero books, adaptations of biblical stories set in the modern day. At least that's how I sort of interpreted what he said. He may have been saying that they want to tell biblical stories with a modern storytelling technique. I wasn't clear on that one at all. And books about crime. He mentioned books like in the Mafia, books about serial killers. I could argue that they've sort of gotten into some of that stuff with books like Dark Spaces and that. But, you know, they've mostly done they've done horror, a lot of licensed books, things like that, but they haven't really done superhero stuff. Thank you, Rebellious Monkey. I wanted to tell you that your video on Stanley's other bad ideas. Oh, you watched that one. And it made me realize I don't want to depend on writing superheroes a lot, especially when it came to Pusey. Yes, a great book. That's a great book about comics. That's a comic as well. To be clear, I know IDW, has let people go and they're trying to deal with cost-cutting measures, but they have consistently said that their publishing arm does well. And that makes sense when you see how good the numbers are for books like, for instance, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think that they've just been investing too many of their resources into trying to get into entertainment to produce their own sort of movie and TV ideas, and that's not paying off right now. I think that they should just refocus for a while on just publishing. That stuff they're making money on. Sorry. Yeah, the good idea. Biblical crime stories perpetrated by superheroes. That would be nice. Oh, he also mentioned, although this news has been out there for a little while, they delisted themselves from the New York Stock Exchange as a cost-cutting measure. But I'm not an expert on buying and selling stocks, so I really couldn't tell you too much the implications there. They just said that it did save them a lot of money. I had really been looking forward to this. There was a fan-made Berserk anime adaptation that people have been working on for a long time, and every time they've showed a trailer, it looked like it was really well done. But it has been canceled. I don't think that should be a huge surprise, being that it's based on something from Japan, and they're very litigious on copyrights for things like this. Anyway, fans were making this adaptation of Berserk. It's by, of course, Kantaro Miura, and once he passed, his Studio Gaga team. But the people making it announced this week that they have canceled it. So the goal was to adapt the first arc of the comic, The Black Swordsman. And there was a trailer released as recently as 4 months ago that already has over 4 million views. So there was a lot of interest in this. So here's their quote. As some of you may know, Studio Gaga, the rights holders of Berserk, recently took a public stance regarding the release of Berserk content without proper authorization. Naturally, this has implications for all Berserk fan projects, including ours. After thoughtful consideration and exploring all possible options, we have made the very difficult decision to bring this project to a close. While we are extremely passionate about continuing the project, we recognize the potential legal risks involved and feel it's important to respect the intellectual property rights of Studio Gaga Hakusensha. And they did get a cease and desist letter. Is what it is. Wish we could have seen it. I hope that they do consider a good adaptation at some point. We've gotten a couple little attempts at it, but there's been no great full adaptation of Berserk. Yeah, March. I've got the Japanese version upstairs in my recording room, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the English version. It's easier to read for me. The only reason I say that is because in Dan Clow's book, Dr. Infinity is not only based on Bob Kane, but also Stan Lee as well, because he only had interests in just superheroes. Oh, yeah. I got the impression he's way more based on Stan Lee. Fortunately, there's always the ability to rewind, and once I finish, I'll add chapters so that you can easily jump to anything you're interested in. But thanks for joining us tonight. Speaking of some manga stuff, a Taiwanese man sued his mother for throwing out his manga. Is EJ Sue here tonight? I don't know. What YouTube channel, thank you for the super chat, any genre focus would you want to see adapted into a comic book similar to a regular movie, TV show, or video game? A YouTube channel? I don't know if any of them necessarily have a story. Oh, tell you what, why don't we, Linkara was kind enough to do a cameo in my last episode. He's got a lot of lore. give him a massive budget, and I would be very curious to see what he came up with. Oh, good. Yes. EJ, you're here. So I know it wasn't too long ago that you were in Taiwan last. I don't know if you saw this. I came across this in a Taiwan newspaper while searching for news. Let's see. So the Chiai, I'm guessing, district court has ordered a mother to pay New Taiwan $5,000. That's about, I'm going to say $150 USD, although that's real ballpark, in damages after she threw out her son's collection of 32 Attack on Titan manga. She threw them out. So this is a 20-year-old son that lives with his mother, and she felt that he just had way too many, I'll say manga and magazines. And apparently these were on the stairs and had a little water damage, so she threw them out. But he really wanted to keep them and said that like some of them aren't in print there in Taiwan right now. So he was really upset. They don't get along very well, even though they live together, and they couldn't settle it in small claims court. So it went to court, and she didn't show up to defend herself. So the court really had no choice but to say, yeah, it's still his property. You threw it out. You know, you owe him $150. Oh, that was painful to hear that this family couldn't get along like that. The Adventure Zone got turned into a good comic. Nice. PBS did a pseudo-vlog YouTube series where Victor Frankenstein was reinterpreted as a modern struggling med student. Oh, interesting. This man is my hero. Supa Troopa. Thank you, Steve. This could be a movie? Yes. I think he should probably just move out. I think he should take that $150 and move out. Just curious. She can charge him $5,000 for next year's rent. Again, 5,000 Taiwanese dollars is somewhere, it might be a little more than that, but somewhere around 150 US dollars. Does that sound right? I think like 32. No, I feel like that would be worth more here, because even if it's just like $10 an issue, if there's 32 volumes, that should be more like 320. Maybe they're considering because the fact it was water damaged. But anyway, wait, is it really? I was curious if you had any insight. I appreciate you sharing that, EJ. Oh, by the way, what happened? EJ had Mickey from Godzilla take a picture in front of his Godzilla mural that he did in San Francisco. Isn't that cool, folks? I think that's so cool. And just since he's here, and I love promoting people that are like my friends and I know what's going on, he has some variant covers coming up for things like Void Rivals and Transformers that look really good. Like they're sort of what would you call them, like a diagram, like something very technical, yeah, very cool. Let's go Mets. Hope to see you at New York Comic Con on Saturday. That would be great. All right, one last manga thing. The Shadow manga issued a piracy warning to readers, I guess, or maybe pirates. So Korokoro began publishing an official Shadow the Hedgehog manga just this month, and that's to promote some new Sonic game that's coming out in a sec. And fans have posted images of the pages on social media. Apparently, this company did not like that. They said Korokoro issued an official statement on their website, and it warns people that they do consider that piracy. They reserve the right to engage in legal action for people shown to share interior pages without permission. So, trust me, when I review manga, I always get a little nervous. And to combat that, one thing that I did was on one of my trips to Japan, they used to have YouTube studios. You could like film in an actual studio with YouTube like equipment. It was great. But you had to be like, they were very careful about what you made there. Before you, like, when you finished it, they had to approve it before it could go live. And they looked into things like rights. You also had to have a meeting ahead of time saying what you were making for content. And I filmed that in Japan, and it was about Akira. And I did that specifically so that, like, I was like, hey, I'm going to put YouTube's legal team to work, make sure that I really can review manga without getting in trouble. And you can. So you can. You just can't, like, sort of tell the whole story. You have to be careful about how much you share, things like that. But you can do it. But it's very different when it becomes anime. Because if they consider that like a substitute, you know, you have to be really careful with analysis on YouTube. I had Marvel Star Wars 2 through 117 destroyed by water. Oh man, I went through a flood in New Orleans and lost a year's worth of a comic book collection. It was very frustrating. $5 per Tonkabon. Oh man, that's a good price. It's closer to like 9 to 12 for a typical one here. Another YouTube comics channel almost got shut down for reviewing manga he had been sent by Viz, I think, to review. Well, you have to be real careful with how you review that stuff. Oh, you're on to me. Well, there can only be one. That's the crappy way of saying there can be only one. It's a diet Mountain Dew, but I need some caffeine. Power through. Revival. That's a comic that's getting turned into a TV show on Sci-Fi, and they've cast their main cast. Variety reported on this. Sci-Fi is adapting Revival. I think that was Image, right? I'm pretty sure that was by Image. And it was written by Tim Seeley, drawn by Mike Norton. It's going into production this month in New Brunswick, Canada. And the story, if you haven't read it, concerns like this rural Wisconsin town where all of a sudden the dead people there return to life. Not as zombies that are rotting or anything. They're just back to life. All these people back to life. And the sheriff of the town has to solve a murder mystery. And now, of course, there's all these new people and new relationships out of nowhere. So it was Image. Thanks, Steve. I thought so. I was just trying to remember. So I don't know these actors, but maybe you guys do. But just to give you an idea of the important key characters, Melanie Scrofano plays Dana. She's a police officer, single mom, investigating the central mystery. We've got Romy Weltman playing her sheltered younger sister. We've got David James Elliott. Wasn't that the guy on Jag? That show Jag? I think it was. I never watched it, but that name sounds familiar. David James Elliott plays their father. He's the stubborn town sheriff. And then Andy McQueen plays a CDC scientist investigating the revival. Think Tim Seeley will have Doomtree make an appearance since they showed up in the comics? Probably not. Probably want to keep those rights separate. But anyway, I think it did. I think it did now that you mentioned that. But that probably would not happen either on a TV show. Enjoyed the Revival series. I hope they don't screw it up too much. Hey, who knows? Maybe having, more room to play with might make it interesting. Oh, Melanie Scrofano plays Wyona Earp. Got it. I've heard of that. Got it. I haven't seen it. Well, thanks for watching. Yeah, I do have a new Comic Tropes episode out. I'll plug that at the very end of the show. Yeah. A couple new comics coming out that had really strong pre-orders. First, I'll mention The Terminator. It's written by Declan Shalvey, art by Luke Sparrow, but notable backup stories by Sal Crivelli from Comic Pop and artist Colin Craker. That received pre-orders for issue 1 of 61,000 copies. Definitely very, very strong. Very, very strong. And then Absolute Batman here. Absolute Batman by Scott Snyder and Nick Dragata. That crossed 200,000 in pre-orders. So what's the conclusion here? If you promote your book on pros and cons or comic tropes, you're going to get really strong pre-orders. That's what I think. So since we're doing that, I think both of these guys are in the chat room. My friend Randy Stone just launched a Kickstarter for Bullet Adventures issue 6, and you can also get the previous issues if you don't have them. That's a great, like all ages friendly superhero story about a super speedster. And then Jim Mafood, who I do that awesome show Trash Movie Bonanza with, has his Kickstarter pre-launch page up for Defective Comics Presents Savage Street Vigilante, and that launches October 1st. So, yeah, I'll point those out. No, honestly, everybody who's ever like promoted their book on this usually tells me that they've had strong pre-orders, and I don't know how much credit I can take. There's no tracking that I can do there, but I think it probably helps. I'm really interested in the new Terminator. Thank you. There's a couple different covers, to be clear, Clay. There's depending on what you like. There's a lot of interesting variant covers. That's something Dynamite does very well. But I agree. Like, and that was, by the way, Alex Ross at the beginning. The stuff that he did for Now Comics, when Now Comics had the Terminator license. This Bruce Wayne is very different. He was never a millionaire, to be clear. He's just the guy that works out like crazy, and he's an engineer. He's very, very smart. He's done a lot of interesting stuff. I'll keep going. Garth Ennis joined a new team, forming a new imprint. So what's that? Ninth Circle Books. You can see their tiny little logo there. Bing! Ninth Circle, like the ninth circle of hell. You get it? Does that make sense? That was very aggressive of me. I'm sorry. Anyway, Ninth Circle's a new imprint focused on horror books. And the first announced book is called Freddy the Fix. And that's described as a horror comedy. I really like the lighting on this cover, actually. I really like that a lot. So the founders of this group include Garth Ennis, Equalizer co-showrunner Adam Glass, and then folks from comics like Marguerite Bennett, Joe Pruitt, Ram V. Pretty nice. Titles will be published through Image. And the first book, Freddy the Fix, is about a fixer who solves problems for the Hollywood movie industry. And it deals with actual creatures there, like werewolves and vampires and things like that. Oh, his Max Punisher run was pretty darn strong, so I hope you enjoy it. Beats me what the dinosaur is there for, but yeah, maybe. I think it's a pretty strong cover. I like it. Only thing that could make it better is add a gorilla. A gorilla, like, shouting the title, maybe. Two more pieces of news. Ghost Machine announced their first crossover, although it isn't like across all their books. It's happening in this issue, folks. A one-issue crossover. So Image released their solicitations for their December comics, and that includes the Ghost Machine comic, The Rockefellers, #2. That's about a time-traveling family from the future. And part of the ad copy, the part that's relevant to us, reads, improbable guest appearances by Geiger, Rook, Redcoat, and the denizens of Hyde Street. So it wraps 4 other books somehow into this one. And that comes out December 18th. So, whee! Yes to gorilla covers. Yes. Yeah, well, thanks for watching, Alex. I appreciate that. Yeah, kind of like Invincible War, exactly. That was really cool. Invincible had this huge, epic thing that felt like an event or a crossover, but it all happened just in the Invincible book. But that meant you got, Savage Dragon, Guardians of the Globe, Astounding Wolfman, Tech Jacket, some others. It was cool. Last one, folks. The Ringo Award winners. I'll just blast through this, but that happens at Baltimore Comic-Con, named after the late Mike Wieringo. I'm not going to list all the nominees. I'm just going to list who won. So, fan favorites, that's the stuff that all of us get to vote on. Favorite villain was Montresor from Nevermore. Favorite new series, City of Blank. Obviously, you can see that like online comics get a lot of votes. Favorite new talent, Danny Earls. Congratulations to Danny. And tell you what, why don't we just have Danny on the show next week? You like that idea, okay? Okay, since you all seem to like it, that's what I'll do. Danny's going to be on the show next week. Coming straight from Ireland. He's going to be up in the middle of the night. We're going to have Danny on. Favorite publisher, Image Comics. Congrats to them. Favorite hero, Lenore, also from Nevermore. And then we've got the jury and fan winners. That's where, some pros and industry people get to contribute. Best original graphic novel, Monica by Fantagraphics. I've talked that one up when it came out. That'll be on my top 10 list of the year. It definitely will. Best humor webcomic is Blue Chair. Beats me. Best artist or penciler inker team, Elsa Charretier. Congratulations to Elsa. Best writer, Mariko Tamaki. Well, I did say Roaming was a pretty damn good book, so that makes sense. Best kids comic or graphic novel, The Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries. I didn't read it, but sure. You also have a Kickstarter called Questers. Well, there we go, Dan Wolf. Tell you what, this Friday I will do I'll do one of those live streams where I let people promote their book, okay? I'm just saying that to everybody. Best colorist, Tamara Bonvillain. Bonvillain? I don't know. Best presentation in design, Richard Starks Parker, The Complete Collection. Yeah, it's strong, folks. I've seen that. I didn't buy a copy because I have the original issues, but I saw it. I flipped through it. It looks fantastic. It's a good team up. Nice. What else have we got? We have Best Cartoonist, Jeff Smith. Remember, there was some new small stories of Bone that came out this year, so that's awesome. Best webcomic is still Lore Olympus. Boy, is that popular. I'm ready for some other people to get recognition is all. Best series, Geiger Ground Zero. Didn't expect that. Best anthology, The Rocketeer one-shot. Very cool. Best humor comic, Bone, More Tall Tales, and that's from Scholastic. Let's see. Best cover artist, Chris Somney. There was a lot of competition in that one. A lot of competition, so that's impressive. Best nonfiction work went to the Miles Davis and the Search for the Sound. Very cool. Best single issue or story, Animal Pound. I'm going to talk about the last issue, but number one got the best single issue story for the year. The Spirit Award went to The Hunger in the Dusk. So that's another example of IDW having a book that's making a big impact. The Hero Initiative Awards. These are for people that have done something in the community, something charitable. The Dick Giordano Humanitarian of the Year Award went to Tom Brevoort. Congrats to Tom. The Lifetime Achievement Award went to Klaus Janson. That's really cool to see him get any recognition. One of the best thinkers in the field. One of the best. Great artist. And then the Brogan Fidelity Award. Don't know what that one is, to be honest, but that went to Tom Rainey. Tom Rainey's a cool artist. Maybe. Anyway, the only thing I liked about this, I'll say, folks, is that we're seeing a lot of talent and books that we didn't see, from, say, the Harvey Awards or the Eisner Awards. So it's just nice to see some different names pop up. Bone is just one of the all-time best comics, period. So that's everything I had for news. Let's see if I've charged my camera enough and we can take a look at some of the new comics that came out, because I'd really love to talk about that with all of you. Would that be okay? Are you guys okay talking about comics, new comics that came out? Or are you like, no, talk about comic book movies. That's all we care about. I don't think that's so. I'm just being silly. I'm being a big old silly Billy. Just focusing my camera, putting it there. Move the Mountain Dew out of the way. And we'll add another camera. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. I'm having a great time. do it like that. And I'll move some of my stuff a little bit. Yeah, you know what? Tell you what, I'll just briefly, you know what? That's not completely in focus either. Maybe that's a little better. Is that a little better? So yeah, the trailer for Thunderbolts came out. I thought it looked fun. I hope it's good. I don't know. You know, it might be a dud, but I do actually like a bunch of the actors in that. I was about to just say Florence Pugh, but I actually also really like all of a sudden I'm forgetting his name. The guy that plays U.S. Agent. Oh, I keep just thinking of Kurt Russell. Wyatt Russell, right? Is it Wyatt? Wyatt Russell's been good in everything I've seen him in. So that might be fun. It might be fun. There's some positivity. It's going to tank. I don't think it'll tank. I really don't. We did get to here. I'll just quickly set that aside and just say no spoilers, but there were 2 comic book TV shows that came out this week, one from Marvel, one from DC, and boy, could they not be different. I enjoyed each in its own way. Agatha All Along was kind of, it's not quite campy, but kind of funny. And I don't know, I liked it. Catherine Hahn is definitely taking advantage of this opportunity, you know, to be in the spotlight. I thought it had some good humor. I really liked when like this witches coven sort of sang their magical song to unlock the road. We'll see. We'll see. So far, I liked it. I did like it. Very different show was The Penguin over on HBO. It's funny. Agatha All Along has all these little hints at comic book stuff. You know, we've got like Jennifer Kale from the Man-Thing comics. We've got references to potentially Blackheart, you know, Mephisto's son. The Salem 7 and Nicholas Scratch. Some villains that have popped up in Fantastic Four. Pretty obscure in a way, but, you know, important. But the Penguin, like, could not be less interested in giving us any sort of Easter eggs. Like I think the only one might be that they mention in a story a villain who in the comics pre-New 52 was the father of Selena Kyle, like this criminal that was the father of Selena, and he's just mentioned in passing. That's like the only Easter egg. It's not. It's a new story, and it's closer to something like The Sopranos. But Colin Farrell and I don't know if I'll pronounce her name right, but Kristen Milioti, really strong performances. Honestly, especially Kristen Milioti. She's the one that surprised me. She plays Sophia Falcone in the comics, like Dark Victory. She was called the Hangman. This is like a younger, sexier version of her, but she's still pretty off, but pretty smart. So, yeah, I don't know. It was the only thing that was like a slight disappointment to me on the Penguin is the Penguin sort of like press gangs this kid that was trying to steal the wheels off his car. He sort of press gangs him into becoming his assistant. Otherwise, he's just going to kill him. So the kid has no choice. And that kid didn't have too much in the way of a character. You know, he just sort of like goes along. But it you know, it's standard crime fare, but it's really grounded, like really dangerous. One thing that is an example of the tone. Penguin gets interrogated, basically tortured by his mafia people. And what they do is they put a wire under his arm while he's sitting down and just pull up on it so that it like starts cutting into his arm. And that's just so simple, but it was so effective. It was very easy to sort of like cringe and go, oh, that looks painful. Yeah, you guys are saying, was the kid's name Jason or Jason Todd? No, it wasn't. Even though, like, yeah, that's Jason Todd's origin, was he was stealing hubcaps off the Batmobile, and that's sort of what this kid was doing with the Penguin. I don't think it's an intentional reference. I think it's more of a coincidence. But anyway, but of course, Colin Farrell's great. He's really, really good. He's really, really good. And beyond that, I won't say where it goes. I'm interested to follow both. Both of them. I don't have a lot of time for TV, so I kind of bail on TV shows really fast. Someday I'd love to watch things like check out if Rings of Power or House of the Dragon is any good. I don't have time for it. But I liked both Penguin and Agatha all along so far. Probably Penguin I like a little more, but they're very different shows as well. Very different shows. All right, so let's talk about these comics. And the first one I want to talk about is The Moon is Following Us. Now, sometimes you find an artist or a writer, or in this case, both, that speaks to you. You know, you really like what they do generally. And for me, that really is Daniel Warren Johnson. On this, he's writing, and Riley Rossmo is the artist. This is a new book, The Moon is Following Us, published through Image. And I like Daniel Warren Johnson's comics because he blends, he paces things well, first of all. There's always going to be a certain amount of adventure or action and a certain amount of heart and character work. And he's very good at putting a lot of that character work into the actual, scenes that are moving a story forward instead of just stopping everything and having talking heads. Right. Yeah. Dan does a little bit of the art here and there, which is kind of cool. Riley is a good fit, though, for his storytelling style. There's not that much to see. It's not based on a specific comic. It's just comic book panels, and I just liked it. It's just sort of like a crime sort of comic type thing. But I'm impressed. This starts off, you could be like, okay, this is maybe a Dungeons and Dragons world, like talking animal characters and all sorts of weird monsters and, people providing armor and ways to sneak in. And it's definitely about a father and a mother who are trying to save their daughter from something. So they're trying to sneak in somewhere. And it feels very like a Dungeons and Dragons supernatural type of tale. One thing I liked about this specifically was the way there was a specific type of conflict between the two main characters. And I'll say that I like that on a couple levels. First of all, conflict makes it interesting. Conflict moves the story forward. And they're butting heads on the way that they should rescue their daughter. The father wants to be very stealthy. The mother is more, no, we just need to go in all guns blazing and hope for the best. And they've got some allies that are kind of a blend of comic relief characters or mentor characters. They're not super fleshed out yet because they don't need to be. We're mostly getting to know the parents and the different sort of style. But you also do get a sense that they care for each other very much. Look, the art is clearly very nice, right? I think you can look at that and objectively say, oh, that's exciting. That's engaging. That's, great backgrounds, great poses, easy to read. But what's crazy is every once in a while, you just sort of see these things that we recognize more from our world, right? For instance, when the parents were thinking of their child, even though they're in this world of castles and goblins and stuff like that, they see their kid, and that's just clearly a normal town bridge. That's not supernatural necessarily. And then they use magic to summon a way to escape, and it's like a helicopter. It's not a flying dino monster, right? I won't say why, but we'll just say that, like a lot of Daniel Warren Johnson books, for instance, if you read Do a Powerbomb, that had some twists that you didn't see coming. This has a twist at the end, and it helps give it a little more heart, and you realize it is a supernatural story, but it's also something else. So there's a depth to this story, to the world building, that's not cliche. It is something new that we haven't come across before. At least I haven't really. It's a new way of checking that out. So this has nothing to do with Kid Cudi, just to be clear. Yeah, I guess I sort of know what you mean, because right, but this isn't that. Maybe tonally there's some elements that could line up, but it isn't that world or that style. But tonally, I could see a little of it. That's a little funnier than this. This is pretty serious. The stakes are rescuing their daughter. Even if you're not a parent, which I'm not, I think you could still understand caring for a family member and the relationships you can have with family. So that's very relatable. And then the action and adventure looks cool. The character design for some of these monsters is very cool. But I liked that it was a surprise for some of this stuff. What was that? Yeah, like just the design work. The design work for things like the bad guys have this aircraft in it, and it looks like some sort of giant bug. I don't know. It's really good. I almost was nervous because I'm like, boy, for me specifically, Daniel Warren Johnson has a great batting average, but I'm not going to like everything he puts out. So is this going to be one that where all of a sudden I read it and they go, it's only okay? No, I still really like it. I really do. I haven't seen that. No, that's interesting, but no. The other book I'll mention is actually way, way, way more serious. I won't get too into it because actually this is a pretty political comic in a lot of ways. Animal Pound is not a one-for-one retelling, but it takes the concept of Animal Farm, of animals taking over and different species, having different ways of governing. And in this is the final issue, and their president is this kind of dumb dog that's just very popular on camera. He gets on like the webcam at the pound that they run, and runs and earns donations. He changes their central motto: "The doors will remain open," to "The doors will remain open as needed," and that does not go over well. Very relevant. I think it's Animal Farm probably continues to be a book that you read in school because it has a relevant message. The dangers of allowing your government to slip away from you. Governments should fear the people. People shouldn't fear the government. Napoleon. Right. Yeah. It's not a funny book really or anything. It is less about communism. The threat is more, I would say, fascism. Yeah. Yeah. So it might not be for everybody. Just, it might not. But I think it is a relevant book. And look, one thing I'll also just say about it that's good is I think that Peter Gross is great. Like, these are pretty realistic animals, but obviously have a little bit of expression to them, but that's still fairly subtle. Like you each individual image, you're like, yeah, I could just about believe that an animal could do that, but I'm still also getting a little bit of a personality showing up. Really, really good art to be that subtle. It's not cartoony, and that probably wouldn't have fit tonally with such a serious story, but you still need to give these animals a little bit of expression. So some of that is just in the body language, and a tiny bit might be like what they do with what Peter Gross does with the eyes. A little bit. I'm impressed. I liked it. I acknowledge that it might not be for everybody. I found it a relevant story and gave me stuff to chew on. Not literally. I wasn't really chewing. World's Finest was fun. I don't have a lot that I could deep dive into it. It is a fun book. Oh, but I will say that there's a guest artist in this because Dan Mora is drawing the Absolute Power stuff. So this was last name was Gutierrez. What was it? Sorry, I hadn't seen this artist before. Adrian Gutierrez. It's good, but maybe a little too exaggerated for me for what I like in superheroes specifically. I think that this artist could, like, some of this, like, that is good. That's pretty good. But there's a few things where, like, yeah, like, that's just a little too exaggerated for me. At least, like, I don't know. I think that the right book that Adrian would be very, very, very good on. Wasn't quite perfect for, like, these characters that have, like, pretty locked in designs at this point, but you do have to change that up. You have to test those boundaries every once in a while. I get it. You do have to test the boundaries, see what else you can do. It's a fun story. Incredible Hulk continues to be a really strong book, a little bit more of a horror take on the character, and we may be moving towards the end game. This might be like a book that wraps up in something more like 24 or 25 issues instead of 50 or 60. I'm not sure, but it feels the Hulk is getting really close to the main villains in this, which are essentially like ancient demons. This is a character called Eldest, who serves the Mother of Horrors. And so sort of the sub-boss of the whole story. And the Hulk is obviously going up against Eldest already. But there's some great emotional stakes in this. In this specific one, Bruce Banner has to make a decision between sacrificing the Hulk to these, like, sort of ancient evil, sacrificing the Hulk's body, which is what they want, or saving the life of an innocent girl. You have to kind of do what, like, I like stories like this where the hero is presented with what seems to be a dichotomy. Okay. You have to make a moral choice between saving this or that. Right. But ultimately what will happen, and it's hard to predict as long as the writer plays fair, the hero, the protagonist anyway, has to come up with a third option, a way to work around the dichotomy that's been presented by the enemy. Because, like, right now, I mean, that's his choice: is give the Hulk his super powerful body to evil incarnate, or rescue a girl. And I think in the moment, what a hero has to do is it doesn't make a logical sense, really. You save one life, even though you're putting hundreds or thousands or millions in danger by giving them the Hulk, right? It doesn't make logical sense. But how can you sacrifice an innocent girl? You can't. You have to make the moral decision within that moment, in a way. And then there's gonna, not in this, but there's gonna have to be some sort of an option for the hero to outsmart or overpower the villain. And I don't know how they'll do that yet. And that's why I'm sort of enjoying this. But that's what's going to have to happen to I don't know. By the way, I like this interpretation of the Eldest. This is saying that this is its true form. And that's just some sort of weird cosmic horror. It's got if you see it in person, Nick Klein really did some great detail here with a skull-like face, horns, wings, all sorts of, but then, like, the guts are almost pouring out of the body. It's gross. It's a really good villain design. I like it. I've been enjoying this one. The Hulk, the Incredible Hulk, has been doing what the Immortal Hulk does, where it crosses that line between technically some superhero stuff, but also, honestly, just some body horror type stuff. And it works pretty darn well, because the Hulk himself is definitely that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde character, right? He can be a superhero. He can be. And he exists in that world. But his best stories are more just about, like, coming to terms with who you are, and dealing with inner conflict and the horror of, like, what can happen with gross human bodies. Wonder Woman is such a strong book right now. One of her best runs ever. I might honestly call this my favorite run of Wonder Woman, even though I'm not the biggest Wonder Woman expert. The other runs I've enjoyed were, like, George Perez's run after Crisis on Infinite Earths, and some of the crazy bonkers like Robert Kanigher stuff. You got to respect the original, but I really think that Tom King has found a way to make this character very unique and very likable. She does not back down, but she's so caring. And this one is specifically is about her love of Steve Trevor. And we contrast that lovey-dovey stuff so that it's not too much with our self-insert for a story like this. Damian Wayne, a kid who's keeps going like, gross, knock it off, But the three of them have to, it's a simple plot. They have to save a bunch of superheroes in a prison. And they don't have superpowers. But I love stories where a hero is deprived of something that, makes them them. In this case, Wonder Woman, her strength, right? And she still does not back down. She knows the risks. She knows the danger. There's one scene in here I'll point out, and that's it. So a bunch of just regular human guards with bullets come up against her. And she doesn't have her super strength or anything, or her speed. And they're like, she's just a girl with a sword. And they shoot at her, and she's, keeping up her bracelets, but she's not bulletproof. She's a normal person. If you can have bulletproof bracers, but if you're me or you and you get shot, it's going to hurt, and it's going to do some real damage. So while this is technically a crossover within the absolute power, I will say that this particular issue still felt like it was part of just her own run. And this is just sort of a small adventure within that. Yeah. It's a kissing book. I believe in the romance. I really believe in it. I don't know why. I think that Tom King's Wonder Woman is just fantastic. Absolutely phenomenal. Like Dr. Schubill just said. Really, really makes for a heroic character, makes for an interesting character. I wouldn't say stubborn at all, but she definitely sticks by very specific morals, and I like that. I think you really get a sense of her mercy and compassion actually throughout this run, her compassion for her enemies, how she wants to rehabilitate them. And that actually is a core concept from the original Wonder Woman comics, the idea of, rehabilitating bad people. And this art is by guest artist, regular artist, Daniel Sampare, one of the best that DC has, one of the best in comics today. This is by Tony Daniel. It's some of Tony Daniel's best work. It's really, really good. I was so impressed. I honestly think this might be my favorite that Tony Daniel has ever looked. And I don't say that lightly. I didn't expect it because he's a guest artist in this. It looks really good. I'm trying to think. I just really like some of the techniques he does for shading. I think he's got great body gesture type stuff. This is the three heroes climbing a ladder to get into the prison, right? But really what's happening is Steve and Diana are flirting. And I think you get that slight flirting there. She's serious, but she's kind of enjoying flirting with him. I like it. It's some really good storytelling. Yeah, that's true. I guess a lot of them do. I think generally Tom King's quite a strong writer. All I can say is what I like and don't like, and I really like his run on Wonder Woman. Oh, and I'll point out, there's always been backups in these runs, and that's because the main story has been very serious. So they sort of do a fun backup story, which I think is a great palate cleanser and still gives you some good character stuff. Most of that has been drawn by Belen Ortega and focuses on Trinity, Wonder Woman's future daughter. This is about Batman and Robin, Damian Wayne, right before this issue begins and during, but it's an adult Damian retelling the story from his point of view, and he makes himself look pretty darn good. Drawn by Kerry Randolph. I'm a sucker for Carrie's art. Carrie always does great stuff, just great. Very like he's got some influences in there that like remind me of manga and stuff, specifically like 90s manga, but Carrie's just great, just great. So really fun issue, strongly recommended. I hope that's a joke. Sal was only here really for doing like a 20 to 30 minute interview, and he stayed for like an hour. So, and he always let me know that he'd have to take off at a certain point. It was great having him on. And I think Helen of Windhorn is one of the best books out right now. The best, period. Bilquis Evely is blowing my mind. She's so good. Such a good artist. One of my favorites now. One of my absolute favorites. Oh, so this week I did an episode on comic tropes about what artists in the Silver Age had to say about the Marvel method. And I comment at the very end about how the Marvel method is not the most common way to write anymore. You know, a writer giving a synopsis, coming back and adding dialogue. Not the most common way. But to a degree, that is what Zach Davison and Peach Momoko are doing on Ultimate X-Men. I talked a little to Zach, and he says, you know, they'll break a story. Peach will draw all these pages. You know, she'll come up, because a lot of this is from her imagination, which characters they're going to use. A lot of it is, etc. And then Zach will come in and do the dialogue for the characters. And of course, Peach has ideas for that too. But it is a very much a fluid collaboration. Maybe that's more of an accurate description. It's a fluid collaboration going back and forth. So it's really interesting to see what they come up with. It fits well. Like the dialogue really, really fits well in this story. It helps just give character information as compared to like what's happening in the scene. You know, you learn something about the character, about the way they talk or what's important to them. And they give you like this little casting here, right? I'm so slow to pick up on this, but I picked up on something I want to share. Okay, so they tell you about the main characters, and a bunch of these are existing characters that have been in the X-Men. Isako Ichiki, co-created, by the way, by the late John Cassaday, as Armor. She's the main character. You've got Peach's original character, May Storm, Nico Minoru from Runaways, Molly Hayes, or in this case, Mori, also from Runaways. We've got from the X-Men, Noriko Ishida as Surge, and we've got a new version of Shadow King, Shinobu Kageyama. Kageyama would mean Yama is mountain. Kage is Kage storm? I want to say Storm Mountain. Anyway, Kage. I think so. I have to double check. Here's what I didn't pick up on though, until just this issue. Because this character has sort of been in the background, but has been one of their friends. Her name is Natsu Tsukishima. Okay? Natsu means summer. And look, she has one eye. Who else has one eye? Scott Summers, Cyclops. She has not used powers yet or anything like that. She's just been in the background. I'm pretty sure this is their version of Scott Summers' Cyclops just hanging out in the background until like will at some point become more relevant to the story. She's just worn an eye patch, so only has the one eye, but Natsu means summer, and I think that means like a version of Scott Summers. Right? It does mean Shadow Mountain? I thought so. Okay. Just making sure. I see what you... Scott doesn't have one eye, but he is called Cyclops because he wears a visor. Peach has made that more literal by giving this character one eye, right? Okay, I haven't seen any variant covers where she's using her powers, but anyway. Yes, you're right. Yet another Japanese X-Man character. Obviously, in X-Men, Psylocke at one point becomes Asian. Betsy Braddock became Asian. And then they later sort of retcon that and say she went into the body of this ninja assassin named Kwanin. Well, she gets introduced here, but has the more realistic Japanese name of Kanan. And she's an interesting character. She's got a brother who's a local police officer. She's a tough piece of work. So she's starting to find her way into the story. In other words, this is not the Betsy Braddock Psylocke. This is the Kwanin Psylocke, but very cool. It's great. Kage is Shadow. Yes, that's what I was saying, right? Shadow Mountain? Yeah. So, yeah. I love how much they're doing. Like, that's like 6 or 7 actual Japanese mutants that have existed in the 616, the main Marvel universe, that they found ways to update and introduce all together as students that go to school together. The purple is the little hint that this is Psylocke. No purple hair. Maybe that would be too over the top, but yeah. Is carrying, like a wooden sword, and Psylocke has like, or the Kwanin version has a psychic sword. Which rapper would be fun to write and draw as a comic series other than MF Doom? Why not all of them? A lot of volumes to Hip Hop Family Tree. And fortunately, it stops just before somebody like Diddy would be relevant. So, 70s, 80s, and just into the 90s, a lot of cool rapper stories in this. Ultraman came out. This is a bonkers book. I would say this wasn't my favorite issue of the series, but it is still a book that I enjoy. And the only reason I didn't love this one quite as much is a lot of it does take place on an alien world with aliens. And so that just becomes a little harder to relate to than people on Earth, right? But eventually we it gives you some important background stuff on where the ultra mega powers come from. And it is still a book that has insane things like, the Queen of Kaiju here, like living in a lake, and you just see like above the water, a pretty woman's face, but underneath is like this massive Lovecraftian eldritch horror. You've got crazy stuff like the main character getting to talk to his father's now disembodied but still superpowered head. It's crazy. James Herron just has fun art no matter what. Really fun, detailed, energetic art. Lots of motion. Everything's always moving in this book, Everything always displays motion. You almost feel like it's just a screenshot of something animated, Nothing stagnant, right? Lots of speed lines, lots of spatter to just show that there's some energy, some motion. I really love the feathering of some of the dark blacks. Just love it. So there's a lot in this that I like the technique of more than anything else. I said eldritch horror. 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 But yeah, I look at this and I think a lot about art technique. I love how James Herron sets up action scenes and action beats. There's a lot to enjoy about that. It's really hard to use like such a thin panel so effectively, in my opinion. But there's a lot going on here, and it does remind me of the pacing of a lot of manga. Lots of little inset panels to show certain action beats, but not like the whole thing, because otherwise you'd really slow the book down. It's effective. It's effective action storytelling. It is violent, but it's fun. And it's cool. So the story wasn't of this whole series my favorite, but if you haven't read it before, issue 5 is coming back after a small, like several month hiatus. So it has a little recap of what this story is here, and you can catch up. This is a good entry point if you haven't tried Ultra Mega, and the idea of like, you know, super giant kaiju and stuff like that appeals to you. And if this artwork appeals to you, I encourage you to give it a shot. It's very different. I guess the only other things I have to add are G.I. Joe and Destro, because Skybound does technically have two continuities. So they've got their Energon universe, which is Transformers, all the G.I. Joe books, Void Rivals. That's Destro. Next issue is the last of this, and then it just formally goes into G.I. Joe. But then there's Larry Hama's creation. This is the first piece of G.I. Joe fiction, and it's still going. This is issue 310. It's gone across 3 publishers: Marvel, IDW, and now Image. But the cool thing about it is that it never gets so deep into the weeds in its own continuity that you're like, what's happening? It's just constantly sort of like finds little ways to reset and just have adventure. Right now, we've got like about like 4 factions that are all converging for a war in Cobra's town of Springfield. They control a town in America called Springfield. So we've got Cobra Commander and all of his army in Springfield. Serpentor and his mutants are all converging on it to wipe them out and take over the Cobra resources. G.I. Joe has a ninja scout team there to assess things, and the Dreadnoks and Baroness are coming in to sort of like team up with G.I. Joe, I guess. It's a lot of different factions, but this is fun. This is the fun of every once in a while, a bunch of different factions within this world will converge and have like these huge multi-issue battles, and they will kill off some people. One of the main characters in this absolutely gets shot in the chest, and I don't know if that character will survive or not, to be honest. Probably will, but maybe not. And then Destro is the we're moving into the end game of the sort of prequel stuff that sets up the G.I. Joe universe. There's a twist in this where a new main character emerges, and that character hasn't existed in previous comic book or cartoon lore, to my knowledge. Might have been a figure. And then there's some behind the scenes backstabbing with characters like Cobra Commander and the Crimson Guard, the Crimson Twins, I should say. The cool thing is you don't have to read both of these. Like if you have never read G.I. Joe before, this is a way more modern take on it, and some of the characters do act differently, but it's more plugged into the current world. And then this just has really well, like, it just has a world that's very consistent in terms of like the tone, in terms of the characterization. This is just adventure. This is way more of a connected universe of all sorts of different things, you know, from aliens to robots to soldiers. It's been a fun week. This is a fun week. But I will say, like, what was the best this week? These 2 books. The Moon is Following Us and Animal Pound. Maybe not for everybody, but by far they stood out to me as like really stuff that I just blasted through and then went back and reread a bit. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. Anything you guys read this week that I didn't read? No, the Energon story is not coming to an end. The G.I. Joe prequel comics are sort of wrapping up because they've had several. They had Duke, Scarlet, Cobra Commander, and Destro as mini-series that established some of the important characters in that world that G.I. Joe is going to operate in within the greater shared universe of, you know, Transformers and Void Rivals. But the main G.I. Joe book is launching in a couple months. I've heard that Babs is pretty funny. I've heard that was good. Hope you find some good ones. Instead of Trash Movie Bonanza, you and Jim should do a trash TV episode where you guys watch the White Rapper Show. I've never heard of that, Alex. I've never heard of that. Maybe we would do TV someday. We've got a crazy idea for the next episode. It's really bonkers. And then I've thought of like one or two superhero type movies I'd like to pitch Jim on. But Jim has a lot of great ideas too, honestly. So we've got a lot of ideas. Thank you, John. Glad to catch the great Piskor family interview. It was good for the heart. Challenges great and small conspire to keep me from my local comic shop this weekend, but I guess we'll see. Love to the Tropes Nation. Well, thanks for the positivity. That's great. Oh, is the power? Who does the power fantasy? Because I definitely feel like I keep hearing about that on social media, but I haven't picked that up. The tricky thing could be like finding some of those TV shows to get the clips and everything. That could be the trickier thing. Yeah. Oh, so you're gonna go to what is it the Brookline store that he's gonna be at, or is it gonna be? Yeah, I heard that Ben Edlund got to be at the Baltimore Comic-Con as a guest of honor. Sounded like a lot of people, like a lot of other artists, got to draw the tick. He drew the tick and shared that on social media. Love that. That's so cool that you. Yeah, I would love to get to see him at NEC again. That would be so cool. It was interesting. I had, of course, Joe Casey on the show, and he talked about some of the ideas he had for it, and it did interest me. And that was somebody I've never read or watched Johnny Quest before, but I will probably pick that up in like trade paperback or something. Got it. Kieran Gillen does Power Fantasy. Kieran Gillen's a great writer. That's cool. Brockton is where, okay, the Brockton New England Comics. Very cool. So you are going to go, ChemDog? You're going to go see Ben Edlund and get something signed? I hope so. Did it? Sometimes I do think you're right. Like there are shows that I would love to look back at that are forgotten, but were kind of like what we would settle for before this age of comic book shows. We would go like, okay, Freddy's Nightmares, Friday the 13th, the series, War of the Worlds. These are the shows that we'll settle for because at least it's sci-fi. Yeah, sure. I'll fly home tonight. Booking a ticket now. Booking a ticket right now. Never heard of the show called Doug, I have to admit. Sorry. Oh, cool. I'm glad you're watching it. Yeah, I'll once I end this in a little bit, I'll go back, and I always put in chapters now since the show is so long. I've heard of that one, but I don't know if I'd want to watch that much Gary Busey. I know, because there was nothing to do with Jason, but one of the guys that wrote for it did get the opportunity then to write and direct Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, which Jim and I just reviewed. I encourage you guys, I think that's one of the more fun episodes we've done so far. Our Friday the 13th episode of Trash Movie Bonanza right here on this channel. Cruel Universe is very fun. Okay. Yeah, some great comics this week. My thanks again to Diane, Bobby, Bree, and Justine Piskor. Very nice of them to carve out some of their time. And I encourage you guys to check out that Zoop campaign. That link is in the description below. A lot of crowdfunded stuff coming up. So what I think I'll do is this Friday, I'll do one of my live streams where I just allow anybody that has an indie or self-published or crowdfunded campaign book that's available and wants to, they can jump online, get in the queue, and I'll interview each person. I would say right around issue 21, it really picks up. Dude, I had so much fun doing that. Sometimes I always have fun actually doing it, just to be clear, because I love watching this stuff and I love talking to you. I enjoy doing this. I get a little extra excited on certain things that I have seen before versus I like discovering new things, but I have a lot of fun going over stuff that I know really well. But as far as discovering new things, I think so far the best thing that Jim introduced me to, and he's introduced me to a bunch, but had to be what was that Comet movie? Was it Night of the Comet? That one was awesome. That one was so good. Sledgehammer had a Marvel comic version? Huh. Interesting. We had a lot of fun doing that one. And in fact, we did have so much fun. Like we talked a couple times, like, you know, maybe we should review them all. Not like in a row per se, but, you know, maybe we just go like do two at a time in order at this point, and we just sort of skip over 5 and 8 since we've covered it. But it's possible. Yeah, sometimes you can find it on there. And we have to be careful about like the rights. So far, the one that was trickiest was, and it was my fault. I chose the movie House. I think that Japanese horror movie is just so different and weird. I really wanted to talk about it, and I enjoyed talking about it, but I had to go back and turn almost every clip of that movie into still frames because it just kept getting copyright claimed. Night of the Comet was such a cool discovery. Like I'd heard about it, Jim. I'd never seen it. I really like that movie. And yeah, it's a good movie. It's a really good movie. That's my favorite part of I'll say this. Out of all the Friday the 13th movies, and I'm a Friday head. You could call me a Friday head. That is my second favorite moment in the Friday the 13th movies, is like demon singing, "Ooh, baby, hey, baby." My first favorite movie is definitely Crispin Glover's dance in Friday the 13th 4. Debating going to a small con here in San Antonio and getting some Black Panther Omnis signed by Christopher Priest. I love small and indie Comic-Cons because you almost like feel obligated to like look at every table because they're not that many. And sometimes you can have some really interesting conversations. And as long as it's affordable, you can find some real passion projects. And they may sometimes be rough, but they're going to be different and cool. So I love indie cons. I really do. I'd love to review it at some point. But yeah, we have an idea for a police-themed episode next. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to give it away, but it's pretty crazy. Crispin Glover's dance is what made the movie classified as horror? Maybe so. Maybe so. Oh, yeah. House. And that one also had Norm from Cheers, right? I think I remember. Tetsuo, the Iron Man. See, but that's probably another one that we'd have a lot of trouble getting the clips. And I think that if you were going to talk about Tetsuo, the Iron Man, the visuals are almost everything to that movie. The style. That they've got a technique in Tetsuo, the Iron Man, if you folks haven't seen it. Black and white, surreal horror movie about a man that's becoming mechanical. They've got scenes where people will like, you know, sort of like move really fast down streets and stuff. And they did that by taking camera pictures and lining them all up. It looks so weird and cool. So I think I'll end it there because this has been a good show. You guys had some great comments, good jokes, super chats. I'm not going to say what it is. It's 2 movies. It's 2 police-themed movies. I'm not going to say what they are. Last weekend on Friday the 13th, I forced the crew of my pals to go see Friday the 4th, Part 4 on the big screen. They all loved it. Dude, that sounds fun because that is one of the best. It's just one of the best. I had a great time. Thank you all. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to my supporters on Patreon. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for hitting like. Thank you for hitting comments. Thank you to Ed Piskor's family. Thank you to Jordan at Zoop for setting it up. And next week, I do have another guest. We're going to have Danny Earls on. Danny's been making some big waves this year. He's a great guy. I think we're going to have some fun talking. He's got a good story. Oh, and thank you, Dave, for being here and for allowing me to bestow mod powers just in case. Thank you. But everybody was great. Take care, everybody. Bye.